So this is part 2 in a 3-part series of the academic job application process. So the audience is for you who are currently applying for academic teaching jobs, or else this might be something that you're hoping to do in the future. So in the previous video, I talked about just applying to the academic job, putting together your package when you apply for an academic teaching job. So all of the parts that are included in that package and how to really tailor it for the particular jobs in which you're applying. So in this video, I wanted to talk about the Zoom interview process that you would now conduct with the committee. And so I took my jacket off because in the previous video, you're just sending out your package and you don't know too much about the school or who's even on the committee or the department. And so it's just this kind of generic institution that you're applying to, and you don't know too much about it. But in this process, when you're actually going to meet with the committee on the Zoom call, you're going to see the actual human beings and individuals that are on the committee, and this group of, say, 7 people are going to be deciding your fate. So now you can kind of see their individuality. They're not just this undifferentiated blob, but these are individual people. So you definitely want to take note of the particular people that are on the committee. Hopefully the chair of the committee did give you a list of all the committee members, and if not, you should ask, that you're interested to know who's on the committee. And so I'm just going to use the number 7, that there might be 7 committee members. They're going to be mostly comprised of people from that department and then 2 outsiders, one from the same school and one from an outside school, just to give some outside perspective within the committee. And so in this video, I just want to overview the basic elements of the Zoom call interview for an academic job and how you can best prepare for that interview. And there's just some common sense considerations, but for folks who might not have taken a class on how to apply for an academic job, which I advocate for because you spend so many years obtaining your PhD, so much money and effort goes into that. And the most important part of that is getting a job at the end of it. And some people want an academic job, but of course you should consider other alternative jobs outside of academia as well. There's over 50,000 PhDs minted every single year. PhDs on top of the PhDs from the last year and the last year and the last year. So it's an extremely saturated market. And that's the first point, is you need to not take this process personally because there's just so much competition. And as we know, higher education is extremely elitist. And so people who went to the highest ranking schools gobble up the majority of especially tenure track jobs. So if you don't have a PhD from an elite institution, then you're already disadvantaged within this process. So don't take it personally. It's not you, it's the job market. So you're going to be on a Zoom call. So that means they're going to see you, they're going to see your face, they're going to see your background, they're going to see your personality, what you're wearing. And so you should put some consideration into all of these elements, because I know we're all holding our breath on the committee when, we hit the Zoom button and bring that candidate in. Now you need to understand things from the committee perspective, okay? So this is a huge time suck of a committee effort, and this is part of your service work that you do. And so if you're servicing your own department or servicing an outside department, this is just extra service work on top of your teaching, on top of your research. So this is a lot of effort that people are putting into this process. And imagine that there were 100 applicants for this job position, and they've already specified what their criteria are for what classes you're going to be teaching, what the area of research should be. They've already got their 100 applications. They got that number down to 10 people that they're going to interview on Zoom, okay? 10 people, that's a lot. So maybe they're going to do 2 days. They had to put out a doodle on which days can all 7 people meet for round 1 and round 2 of these Zoom interviews. So it's a huge effort, and imagine it from their side. So they've got 2 days scheduled. Each day they're going to interview 5 people, and each interview is 30 minutes long, and it might be back to back to back. So between each interview, which they maybe have scheduled 5 minutes of a break so people can use the restroom, but of course they all went long, right? So if you're hanging out in the Zoom waiting room and it's like 3 minutes past or 5 minutes past, just understand that the committee is meeting with another candidate. It went overtime. They'll be with you shortly, and that you're not the only person they're meeting with today. They're going to see 5 candidates on Zoom back to back to back. That's at least, hours and hours of talking to candidates. How are you going to stand out? You were candidate number 2 out of 5. How are they even going to remember you at the end of the day? So you really want to put some effort into all of these aspects of the Zoom interview. And so what is your Zoom, background, appearance, personality coming through the camera? You should be aware of how you're presenting yourself on Zoom, and that you're going to be talking to 7 people. So it's like you're going to see 7 people on the call. Each person is going to ask you a question, so you're going to get 7 questions. You have 30 minutes, so you can't ramble on. You really have to be tight with your time and your answers. And so you need to be polished, rehearsed. You need to come across as confident. And so don't be too long-winded. And so some candidates, and of course, I've been on committees and I've interviewed candidates, and so I can see how some perform better than others, right? And so the first thing is to be a great time manager. For example, we're hiring you to be in the classroom, and say the class that you will be teaching is 60 minutes long. You need to be organized. You need to be able to put a syllabus together for an entire semester class. You need to understand how much material you can cover in each class period of, say, 60 minutes, and cover that material, and so on. So being a professor is about excellent time management. You have to show up to class on time, you have to end class on time, and so on. And so therefore use those same time management skills now in this Zoom call. So you're going to get 7 questions, you have 30 minutes. For each question, you want to come across confidently, politely, pleasantly, and speak with confidence and refer to your experiences that are listed in your CV, and you can elaborate on those. So you really need to be picking up on the social cues. So you're watching their facial expressions, and any kind of follow-up questions they have, you really want to address. So what you want to do is you want to understand the question. You want to say, that's an excellent question, and now I have an excellent answer for you. And answer the question, right? Like, this is the question, answer it specifically and completely. And then at the end say something like, I can go on and elaborate on any of the points I've just listed, but in the interest of time, knowing that we only have 30 minutes, I can leave my answer there, and I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions. So we're all academics. We know how awkward academics can be, and this is not the place to be awkward. You don't want to make your audience feel insecure or nervous along with you. So it's important to try to not come across as nervous. Of course, you can feel nervous on the inside, but really kind of just practice how to come across and hide your nervousness within this conversation. I know that it's, I start to stutter or get flustered and might, stutter, say some and ah and all those words. And so I've tried to train myself to just stop talking, smile, get yourself composed, and move forward. So you might need to practice, and this is just as important as your CV and other things, is now you're coming across on camera and you want to come across as confident, competent for the job. You want them to like you and want to meet you now in person. You don't want to turn them off or be awkward to the point where you make them nervous and give any red flags at this point, So there's about 10 people that they're going to be interviewing on Zoom. There's going to be 3 campus interviews. So you just need to beat out, and maybe there's some backups, they have 1 or 2 backup people. So you need to beat out about, 5 to 7 other people at this level. And so this is when they see your personality shine through the camera. So you've got to beat out 7 other people. school. So understand just the basic questions that are going to come at you so that you're not just flustered at that moment, but plan ahead to answer the specific questions. And it's not rocket science. Like, the questions are going to be based on the job, right? So they're going to say, why do you want this job in particular? And that's our first question. Why do you want to come to Albany, New York? Why do you want to be at this particular type of school? So at this point, we want to hear about that you've read our website, you've gone to the school's website, you read the mission statement, you said, oh, I really love the mission of the school. You know, I love this context and this particularity of your particular school. And I love your department, and these particular people's research really resonates with me. I don't duplicate them, but I complement them. You want to be a complement in the department. You don't want to duplicate other people's research, and hopefully you are fulfilling some gap, but you also don't want to step on any toes. So when you start saying things like, oh, I would love to teach class X, it's like, well, that is, you know, Professor X's baby class. That's the class that she developed. And so now she's getting a little, you know, territorial that you're trying to step on her toes. So you also want to not step on any toes, you know, any landmines, because at this point you're going to start to, you know, rub some people the wrong way based on your personality, based on how you're coming across, if you're too flustered. And so, of course, one of the things that you can do wrong at this stage is to ramble on and on and on. Look at the time. If 15 minutes have passed already, you're only 2 questions in. So you know you're behind time. The committee's getting anxious. They have 3 other candidates to talk to you after you. They don't want you to run long, but they don't want to be rude. So they're going to try to, you know, tailor it to get you back on that 30-minute timeline. And so, as we know, when you're doing an interview, when you're teaching a class, time flies, right? You think that you just got started, but 10 minutes have already passed. So that means that, you know, you should be on question 4 or whatever. So understand that the 7 questions are coming at you in 30 minutes. So you just have a few minutes to answer each question. And so what are these questions? You know, it's going to be about the job description. So have that job description memorized. It should be right in front of you, what classes you're going to teach, what the research expertise is, what type of school it is. Look up the demographics of students. Look up the class size. Understand what kind of context of school you're applying to. And so they're going to ask you about, you know, why do you want to come here to this particular school? Do you have, you know, we're hiring for someone to teach this particular class. Have you had experience teaching that class? Is your research in that area? Tell us about your research. Tell us about your teaching statement. Can you elaborate on your teaching a statement or your teaching philosophy of how you approach the classroom? Also, they might have some questions like, what's the most challenging situation you've addressed in the classroom? Or what is a challenge towards you that you feel in this profession? You know that job interviewers always like to ask some kind of, you know, what's your worst trait, or what are your personality challenges, or what have you. So address that carefully and really kind of think ahead, and really, you can also look up just what kind of questions are out on the internet that you can anticipate. So it's going to be about teaching, it's going to be about research. They might ask about service. Service is a good percentage of the job. You're going to be serving on committees. So have you served on committees before? Do you have a grasp of what kind of committees there are in a university that you will be asked to serve on? And so hopefully you have done some service. Or say that, you know, I haven't been lucky enough to do any service yet. I'm only a PhD student, but I have served on these student activities and committees. I've participated in the professional society to this extent. I've presented at conferences. I've done something extra at conferences, not just presenting, but gotten involved in the professional society in some manner, perhaps on the journal or something like that. And then talk about how you look forward to doing service work, and you would especially love to do service work in this particular area. So that gets them to be confident that you can both teach, you can research, and you can do service. Those are the areas of the job. And so you should be able to speak on all of those points. And then they might be asking you a question about, you know, this is a tenure track job, this is a teaching track job. What are your plans for the next 5 years as far as your research and teaching objectives? And so have a 5-year plan, you know, that this is what research you have in the pipeline, these are the classes that you would like to teach or be open to teach, and just what are your plans for the future in this time period in this job. So I don't think those are any surprise questions. It's just about questions about the job itself, what duties you can expect, and how you would best fit into those. Just remember again, keep your eye on the clock, really have that clock in front of you, come across confidently, and really be specific to each person. For example, we know the power of mentioning someone's name. So really listen to people's names and repeat their name and say, you know, thank you for that question, Beverly. That was, you know, really excellent perspective, and here's my great answer. Use people's names, you know, make that kind of personal connection. And hopefully you've looked up their bios. I mean, you perhaps didn't know who was on the committee. You should have asked who was on the committee so that you looked up all these people so it's not a surprise to you. Look at all their bios, know their background, and try to say something that demonstrates that you know their area of expertise to at least 2 people. You don't want to single one person out. If you show that you've looked up 2 people, then the committee can assume you've looked up everyone. They like that you did your homework. Maybe you can mention something personal about 3 people and say, oh yes, thank you, Dan, for that question. I know that you did research in this area. My research complements you. So just show that you are interested in working with them, that you're excited to meet them, you're excited to speak to them on Zoom, and you really look forward to meeting them in person. So in conclusion, the call is only going to last 30 minutes, so you can be a nervous wreck before, after. Just come across confident for 30 minutes. Know that this torture is going to end soon, and you may be one step closer to at least knowing your fate of this particular application. So in the next video, I will be addressing the campus visit and the campus interview, and so hopefully that's you are the candidate that was now selected. You're one of 3 people that are going to actually fly out to the campus and spend 1 to 3 days doing anywhere from 10 to 26 different individual and group meetings, and really get to know them in person, walking across campus, riding in people's car. They're going to pick you up for breakfast at 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. So these are long days, and that's a whole other beast to prepare for. So I'll see you in the next video when we talk about the campus visit.